All right. Hi, welcome to week 3. So, last week we talked a lot about just identifying and analyzing your audience, why that's important. And this week we're going to move into some actual writing techniques that will help you actually adapt a piece of writing to be more audience oriented. So, in that long process, after you kind of complete the process that we talked about last week, which is analyzing your purpose, so the purpose of your message, anticipating your audience, and choosing the best channel for your message, you can actually start writing. Makes it sound really long and drawn out. This process becomes a lot simpler, kind of more streamlined as you get more used to it. So, don't think you're going to have to sit down with a checklist every single time you compose a piece of writing. But to write well, you need to adapt your message to the task and to the audience. So, as the textbook lays out, there are a few different ways that you can do this. So, there are a few different audience adaptation techniques. First one is featuring audience benefits, then cultivating a you view, sounding conversational but professional, expressing courtesy, using bias-free language, and using plain language. So we're going to kind of dive into each of these and explain why we would go about using each of these techniques and how you can kind of revise sentences so they're using these techniques. First one is featuring audience benefits. So remember, like they talk about in the textbook in chapter 1, audiences are always going to be thinking, what's in it for me? So adapt your message by putting yourself in the audience's shoes. Look at things from their frame of reference, what they're going to be wanting to get out of this message or whatever you're offering to them. So an example of this would be, so here on the left would be the first unrevised sentence. So say the message is, our warranty on our mobile device becomes effective only when we receive an owner's registration. Now, if you edit it to include audience benefits, it would say something like, your warranty on your mobile device begins working for you as soon as you return your owner's registration. This frames the message on the audience. It addresses the audience a lot more clearly, and it really gets to the point of what's in it for them, what's going to benefit them, and how do they go about it. So the second technique, which is really what we're going to be focusing on this week, is called developing a you view. So it's kind of similar to featuring audience benefits, but it's really focusing in on and using that second person pronoun you. So framing the message around your audience, addressing them really blatantly and really clearly. So again, on the left, your unrevised sentence with an I, we view would be, our affordable prices and great styles will make redecorating your home a breeze. Sounds okay, doesn't really address the audience super clearly. If you switched it up to a you view, you could say something like, redecorate your home with the latest styles at an affordable price. So first of all, it's just more concise. It more clearly addresses the audience, centers the message around them. So it's really as simple as just kind of taking out a few words, focusing your sentence more around the use of the word you rather than things like our, I, we, things like that. When you're using a you view, with that being said, be careful not to overuse or misuse the second person pronoun you. I'm sure we've all gotten those emails that are really like focused on sales or some kind of recruitment that they almost feel a little bit like a scam when it uses you too much and it just seems like a little bit overly enthusiastic. So make sure that your message is still sounding authentic, professional, and you don't have to completely get rid of I, we phrases. So if you want to say something like, we're so excited to work with you, or I look forward to hearing back from you, that's fine. Again, just as long as it feels authentic and the you is still kind of the center of the message. The third audience adaptation technique is being conversational but professional. So in any kind of business or professional writing, you don't need to use overly formal language to seem professional. So a lot of people kind of fall into this trap of using like the biggest, fanciest words they can think of when that's not really necessary. But on the other side of the spectrum, don't get sloppy either. It's really just all contextual. So you may someday work for a company that uses really casual language, and that's okay. You might work for people who really prefer more formal language. You just kind of have to read what your colleagues are like, and it's best to always kind of err on the side of caution. When in doubt, pick more professional language. The textbook has a nice little chart that kind of lays out different levels of diction. So unprofessional would be like very casual language, the kind you'd use with your friends in a completely like non-professional context. But then on the other side of the spectrum, you have really formal with like huge words, maybe the kind of words you'd use in like a fancy essay, something like that. I don't really know of anyone who talks like this, but there you go. They recommend kind of remaining in this mid-level diction. So having a nice vocabulary, but always being clear. Yeah, just kind of talking like a normal person. This chart is pretty useful though to kind of compare what those levels look like. The next audience adaptation technique is be positive, not negative. So this is just pretty simple. People respond better to positive language. And even further, positive language can really improve the clarity of your writing. It can help you be a lot more concise. So as a couple examples, here are a couple negative messages. So the first would be, you apparently are unaware of our new mailing address for deposits because you used the old envelopes. So I don't know about you, but if I got this email, my knee-jerk reaction would probably be to be a little annoyed. Kind of sounds snarky. It might rub your audience the wrong way. So if you wanted to change it to more positive, you could say something like, enclosed are envelopes with our new mailing address for your deposits. It's probably not going to rub your readers in the wrong way, and it's also much shorter, it's much clearer, it's just straight to the point. Another example of a negative message or a message with a negative tone would be, unless you purchase a direct flight round-trip ticket, you won't qualify for a discount. If you make that into a more positive message, when you purchase a nonstop round-trip ticket, you'll receive a discount. Just simpler, shorter, little less harsh. The next method or technique for audience adaptation is expressing courtesy. So this one is also pretty simple. People like politeness. So if you had a message, I would hope no one would speak to anyone like this. Something like, can't you people get anything right? This is the second time I've notified you. Here's just a much more kind message. Also a lot clearer, actually working to find a solution for whatever issue is occurring here. Claudia, you must complete all performance reviews by April 1st. Claudia, will you please complete all performance reviews by April 1st? Really just showing manners, courtesy, thinking about the kind of message you would want to receive, not being a Karen, you know. These are some good examples from the textbook. Next technique is using bias-free language. So I've included some more of the charts from the textbook for this. A lot of biased language involves gender. So rather than referring to a woman as a female doctor, you would just call her a doctor. Instead of using terms like waiter and waitress and stewardess, you'd say server or flight attendant. Just never really making that assumption. So the teacher, she, teachers, they. So not assuming that all teachers are female, not assuming that all doctors are male. When in doubt, they is good. Yeah. And next, for biased language, some of that is racially or ethnically based. So they have some examples here, like an Indian accountant was hired. You wouldn't want to put that in a message. Simply say an accountant was hired. There's no reason to include these kinds of identifiers in there. Also, disability biased language, rather than saying something like, he is afflicted with arthritis or she is suffering from arthritis, you can just say, he has arthritis, she has arthritis. Rather than confined to a wheelchair, you'd say, he or she uses a wheelchair. Let's not use this word at all. Has a cognitive disability. That's always a great rule to follow. And finally, there's also age-biased language. Things like the law applied to old people. Wouldn't want to say that. You'd want to be a lot clearer, say the law applied to people over 65. And so on with the rest of these examples. That brings us to this last technique, which is just using plain language. So really simply, get to the point. Big words are not always the best. It's easy to kind of fall into that pressure in academic spaces, but in business writing, people are reading these messages really quickly. They're multitasking, they're reading on their phones, their laptops, they get tons of emails a day. So you want to just be really clear, easy to understand. Be precise. So a message like a 25% hike in profits gives a lot more information than a message like there was a change in profits. If you have exact information, go ahead and offer it. Be as clear as possible. Okay, so now that we've gone through all of these techniques, you've kind of seen some examples. I do recommend, if you need to go back through the PDF version of these slides or back through the latter half of chapter 4 and look back through these examples and then complete the chapter 4 quiz. This quiz isn't timed, so you can kind of go back and look at these slides, look at the textbook if you need to. And then after you do that, you need to read the rubric for the audience adaptation assignment and then just complete that assignment. It's going to ask you to revise a short document to give it more of a you view, make it more audience oriented. Of course, if you have any questions about this or anything else, please reach out to me during office hours or some other time. I hope you have a great week, and I'll be in touch. Thanks.